go back up here. There we
Okay,
go.
now I see it.
Now it's on.
Now
Yeah.
we see
Okay.
it. Now it's
right.
streaming. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let me bring this back up. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. So, glitches. Um, and with that interruption, I lost my train of thought. So we know this isn't, we're in a shift. We know they happen quickly. They happen in your local market very, very quickly. So the purpose of this meeting is this. Why are we doing this series now? Let me just get some feedback, some thoughts from you guys. Why now? What's the purpose of getting into this information?
To prepare so you can survive and then thrive.
I have a client that I spoke with earlier today, used to be pro football player. And we're talking about this concept of, if you know the Super Bowl is coming up and your team has a chance to get in, are you going to stop training? Are you going to stop practicing, or are you going to double down? Right? And that's kind of where it is. Because we're doing this now because we're in it. And what do you know? What's happening in your local markets? Are you getting any indications, aside from the national news, the national interest rates, national inflation? Are we seeing any indications in your local markets that are the hints that we're moving into a shift?
We're seeing
Hey,
a few.
George. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're seeing a few houses that are staying past 3 days on the market.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy, right? Three whole days on the market, but that's a change, all right? So days on market is certainly one of the things to look for. What else can you look at?
Well, I want to just, if I can suggest this, Dean from Chicago, every morning I take a look on my MLS and look at two metrics that are very mind-bending to me, for lack of a better term, and that's the number of new listings that went under that came to the market the last 24 hours in the area I service, and the number of listings that went pending in the last 24 hours in the area that I service. And I define my area pretty specifically. It's a certain portion of Chicago that I serve. And when the market was really completely a crazy seller market a year ago, I would find, for example, 100 properties on the market and 300 properties under contract. And now I see like 80 properties new and 60 properties under contract. Okay, so it sounds pretty severe, and it's day to day, and there's cyclicality for the days, but we're not seeing that buy that we had a year ago. Now that's a simple statistic, and it's not everything, but it gives us an indication.
It's an indicator.
Also, right, and we talk to people that are in real hot markets. I'm in Chicago, which for the most part is more lukewater, more stable typically. I hear from these people every day, man, I tell you, I put a property on the market that they had 15 offers in 3 hours, and I had to beat them off with sticks and clubs. And I'm not getting that so much anymore outside of Chicago. I never really had that so much in Chicago, but I'm not hearing that anymore. So I think people are understanding something's changing. Now, a lot of people are in denial, which is not a river in Egypt, by the way, and saying, no, that can't be happening. It's just a passing phase. But I think people are finally realizing, yeah, something is shifting. So I'm seeing that here.
And this is good, Dean. Thank you. And it's really important. Keep your eyes on your local MLS, because real estate is an extremely local business, and market to market, it's going to change. So looking at days on market, looking at active listings, new listings, pendings. What other, anybody seeing price adjustments or having price reduction conversations?
No.
Okay. There's an indicator though, right? All right. So are you watching your MLS on a daily basis, keeping an eye on what's going on? Because if you're not, how else could you possibly be the local market expert that your clients are depending on you for? Make sense? All right. And if we don't prepare, I don't think we have to go down this road, because you wouldn't be here if you. But I mean, imagine. Let me ask you this: how many of you were around in the business during the last shift, the last big one? What did you see happen to the agents that did not prepare for it? What happened?
They ended up getting out of the business.
A lot of them are gone. Yep.
Yeah, the only ones with, the ones with skills survived, or the ones that prepared survived. Otherwise, when it wasn't easy anymore, that's when people got out.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Because a lot of people get into real estate because they can do math, right? $500,000 house, 3%, 15 grand. I only have to sell one of them a month. Yeah. It's like, congratulations, your math is correct. Sort of. Right. But there's a little bit more to it. All right.
Just a little.
Just a little, just a tad.
One of the things we're seeing here in Chicago, I'm not seeing a ton of price changes. So today, 34 price changes in the area we service. That's it. It's low. Okay. But we're seeing people putting their houses on the market more realistically.
Yeah, there you
There's
go.
less
There's
of
another
this.
indicator. Right.
So that's not a price change, and you really can't read it.
Right.
You know, there's no stat for people putting their house on the market realistically. However, we're seeing that happen because when I talk to clients here, I'm getting less of this. Well, we could always try and always come down. Now they're saying, hey, with all this stuff going on, we got to hit it on the target if we're motivated to sell.
There's another indicator: list, sale price. Right. What's the gap? It was like this. Is it starting to close? So all I'm suggesting here is watch your MLS on a daily basis. The top agents are checking it early in the morning, watching the trends, see what's happening. Right. So for purposes of this conversation and the next 6 weeks, this is not a class. I'm not teaching anything. What I want to do is get some thoughts from you guys. You're doing it on a daily basis. You've read the book. I want to get ideas on what you got out of it. Most importantly, what can we apply, right? Because those and John, you coach with Paige, all right? She shared this one with me yesterday, right? I lived through the last shift. Here's what I know: the people who came out on top figured out a strategy and did it at a higher level.
Mhm.
There it is. So I'm looking at this thing as to me, this is nice competitive market that we're moving into. If history shows us that the agents that don't prepare when this market shifts are typically out of the business, that now it's a land grab. Now it's market acquisition time. To the victor go the spoils. So the better we're trained, the more we're prepared, the more market share we're going to grab. And I have no problem with that. All is love, fair, and love war and selling real estate. Okay. So this is the agenda. You got this several times. I think we sent out 3 emails. Today we're going to talk about just part 1. Whoops. Yeah, figured it. You think I'd know how to work PowerPoint by now. Part 1, the market shifts. And the next 6 weeks, 2 tactics per week. Okay. So we're just going to get into the introduction, the market shifts, and what I'm interested in hearing from you guys, just to share ideas. What did you get out of the book? What stood out? What was an aha? And if we need to, I'll throw out some questions just to get it started. More importantly, how do we apply it? How do we apply it? At the bottom of every slide, I'm going to keep this up from Lao Tzu from The Art of War, because I think this sums it up. Victorious warriors win first, then go to war. Defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. If we think in terms of what's happening with the market shift, do you want to be victorious or do you want to be the defeated warrior? And what does it mean to win?
You're getting a
first
little bit of
and
an
go to
echo,
war?
George.
Yeah, we're getting an echo. Yeah, so somebody could
Yeah.
just mute if you're not. Yeah, just mute your mics. That would help. What does it mean to be a victorious warrior in terms of real estate sales? Anybody? Bueller?
I think you've got to have a
Practicing
plan,
the
right?
skills. Giving listing.
Yeah, Derek, go ahead.
I think someone else is trying to talk.
I think this team again. I think what you need to do is determine what you can control and what you cannot control. You cannot
Absolutely.
control the market. You cannot control how people are going to respond to you.
Right?
You cannot control how buyers are going to come in and what they're going to ask for an inspection or kill deals. What you can control is the level of your activity. Okay.
Okay.
So I think what you need to do is just control that and keep at it and be consistent at it. And that should cover for any shortfalls down the road. But you might do more of it.
Okay. I'll definitely buy that. I think it's knowing what you can control, what you can't. I wonder if that feedback is coming from me, actually. Huh, weird. All right. Set realistic goals and move toward them with an excellent attitude. Thank you, Gwen, from the chat. Okay. So let's talk about this then. From the book, from the forward, from the introduction, from the market shifts, what did you pull out of this? What strikes you as meaningful from that part of the book?
I hadn't really thought about it like on a conscious level, but just thinking that we go through shifts every year, like that just kind of hit home for me again. Is like, of course we do. We have seasonality. We go through shifts every year, but then there's the greater economic shift, and how do we handle that? But we're practiced at going through shifts. We know we're going to have primarily when we're going to have more income during a year and when we're not going to have as much income, and we know how to plan for that. And as long as we're doing what we're doing today and showing up on this and reading the book and going through our different methods of planning, then we should be fine in an economic shift as well.
So Todd, are you basically saying take the seasonal shifts and extrapolate that to something bigger?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Just don't fear it, because you go through it every year. Be the buffalo. Go towards the storm.
Yeah. You're here. I think that some people, they get, and we're guilty of this too. When you get into a good groove, we look at ourselves in the mirror and say, dodge that bullet, that's over with. Now I don't have to worry about it. Now I can just count the money coming in. You know, you go through a rough time. I mean, I was in the real estate business, many of you guys were too, in 2008, 2009, the Great Recession. And so many people got out of that saying, this will never happen again. But they didn't prepare for it to happen again.
Right.
And back in those days, I was seasoned in the real estate business, but obviously nobody had anything like that until the pandemic came along. But we thought we survived the storm, we weathered it. Okay, things are going to get better, but that's not always a given. There's always another rainstorm coming over the horizon.
It doesn't necessarily need to be a rainstorm. It's just a change.
Yep.
Just
Okay.
a change. There's the only thing, I think Seneca, one of the old Roman philosophers, the only thing constant is change. Is that right, Todd? You're nodding. Is it Seneca? I think so. You're my go-to guy for philosophy quotes.
Well, he used to be personally coached by Seneca. I don't know if you mentioned that. He was at his knee back in the day. No, I'm just kidding, Todd. I'm sorry. You're a young guy.
That's pretty good, Dean. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
but I mean, if you take a look at the graph on page 7, I mean, that summarizes it all. This is not some cataclysmic thing that happens, once a century.
Right.
This is seasonal. It happens all the time.
Right.
And we don't want to admit it.
Yeah, that's what Todd was saying. We prepare for the seasonal shifts. Now let's extrapolate it out. Okay. So what else did we got? Let me ask this question. Maybe this will spur something on. Who has a story about how something that they were doing poorly was covered over because the market was so good? Because let me reframe that.
Oh,
In a strong market, it's easy to screw up and never have it seen. When the market changes, mistakes are magnified. Okay, so who's got a story about, like, Brian? I thought I saw you jumping in on that.
Well, this ties into what I was going to say a few minutes ago. I think it might have been Dean that was mentioning something that made me think about it. So, in the forward, before, I know you told us to read like 1 through 17 or whatever, but just kind of going back and rereading again reminded me of the fact that we are in this era of extra effort. And so to me, in a market like this, I know in talking to a lot of other agents, their mindset is, the market's hot. This is, it's easy, slam dunk, all this kind of stuff. And to me, there's still things that we do on every single transaction, whether it's a hot market, a poor market, whatever it may be, that it is the process. It is our communication routines. It's all these things that leads up to, at the end of the book, one of the last things it talks about is bulletproofing your transactions. And I can tell you, in my transition from Charlotte to the beach, the market still hot, everything, stuff like that. And I'll admit there were a couple of times that I looked back and I found that we were slipping in our communication routines, how we were following up and things of that nature. And it really kind of sent me for a jolt of, holy crap, we kind of dodged a bullet, because if something had gone sideways on this, we would have been caught flat-footed. And so just revisiting that with my assistant and making sure, inspect what you expect, that old adage of, I'm making sure that I go and look at those things that are critical that I feel like should just be second nature. But sometimes you do need to check back in and make sure that your team is still doing it, or that you're doing what you had committed to do.
Yeah, on communication, Brian, I think you hit a big one here. Would it be ridiculous to assume that your clients are, like Todd's smiling, you know where I'm going with this. Would it be ridiculous to assume that your clients and the marketplace is more nervous now because we're at a 40-year high inflationary rate, interest rates are going up, you got the possibility of war, you got Ukraine, you got all these things happening. COVID was one thing, this is something else. Would it be nuts to guess that your clients are nervous?
Yeah, for me, I know that many of them are, but I don't know that they are for those reasons. I think it depends.
Yeah, it could be a lot of things. It could be a lot of
Yeah,
things, right?
it could be.
How does communication help to mitigate that? And why is it more important to do more now?
For sellers, and sorry, I don't want to dominate the conversation, so I'll say this and then shut up. I think a lot of sellers right now can fall into a false sense of security because they hear nationally, everything's going off the market before showings even happen or whatever it may be. And I'm starting with other agents that I mastermind with. I'm hearing stories of buyer's remorse at the last minute, sellers are caught flat-footed, those kind of things. And so for me, where I focus on my communication with my sellers is making sure that we really stay on top of that buyer to make sure that there's no potential issue. And yeah, people can say, well, there's a large due diligence fee. Yes, there is, some non-refundable fees and things of that nature, but you've got some people that are, I had a situation happen a week and a half ago, selling a house down here at the beach. Buyer saw it virtually, and never saw it in person until they came into town and sat down at the attorney's table and told their buyer's agent they didn't want to buy the house. And so, just preparing for those different kind of things, but ultimately we were able to save it and didn't have to give any concessions or anything of that nature. But those are still things I think we're going to start to see more of, because there's been so many people going after so few properties. There's bound to be something that's going to happen where it either blows up in your face or somebody's going to make an unjustified complaint to a real estate commission or MLS. So
So
I think on the seller side, for the past couple years, we've had clarity of message and that it's a seller's market, and the message was consistent. Now, in the last 2 or 3 months, there's been mixed signals. What do I do with the high interest rates? What do I do if I can't find a place because inventory is low? Yeah, things will still sell really well if you list it, but I'll have nowhere to go. And I think there's mixed messages, and if we don't have the right scripts to talk about, that confusion is going to prevent us from taking the listings.
Yeah. So it's communication. And how important is it to have accurate market data in your communications with your clients?
Yeah, it's important, but I think more important is to figure out what their concerns are, what's going on in their mind, what things are getting their mind going. Is it inflation?
Sure.
Is it, what is it for them specifically? More so is my opinion.
Yeah, fair. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Their motivation. It always
What-
comes back to their motivation.
motivation, right? And their fears.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's a difference between listening to think about what you're saying next, or listening to really understand what they're saying.
And the focus is on their fears or their concerns or their emotion. If you can get them talking about that, they'll feel understood. If they feel understood, they're going to trust your advice. And then when you give them the market data or the solutions as to, you know, what could happen if you sell and we haven't found that next home, but you have a solution for that, they'll listen because you're the trusted advisor.
Which means you need some strategies that are going to be different than what you were using last year, doesn't it?
Fact.
Okay. And when I talk about market data, how easy is it to just overwhelm somebody with numbers and feel like you're being really, really smart? Okay. Versus understanding the numbers enough so that you can talk to them about what's important to them. Make sense? Okay.
Yep.
Priscilla, I just saw you light up down there. I don't know if you wanted to say something or not. Maybe you just came on board. Okay. All right, cool. Anybody else? Anybody else have a story about or an experience where you had a bad habit and it was forgiven by a robust market? Or is that too personal?
I think we all do. I think we all do, although I'm sorry. I think we all do, but I think some of us don't admit it. I mean, we all do. I mean, when the market is hot, you're sitting there thinking you can do no wrong. My gosh, George, you coach all us. And when things are going well, it's like we walk into the coaching room and it's like, hey, we're doing well. And then when things are a little crazy, we're not strutting anymore. So, and that's just human nature. I mean, you know, marketing goes down, follow-up goes down, lead gen goes down because we don't need it anymore.
Okay, good.
And
Now,
then all of a sudden,
all right, like perfect, Dan. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to take this. How do we take that now and use that as preparation for what's coming?
You know, George, I find this the best time to stay in contact with my sellers and buyers, more so than in a buyer's market, because usually it's like, you know, if you have a listing, you have to come up with thoughts and ideas of how to get their home sold, and besides just price drop. And I think this is a key time I know for me, to stay in contact with my clients so we can build that relationship. I can get those reviews online and get those future referrals from their friends and family when it does turn into a buyer's market.
All right, I was confused whether this is a metaphor or an analogy or a simile, so whatever it is. Zig Ziglar used to have this little one-liner. See if anybody knows the answer. When should you tell your spouse that you love them?
Daily.
The answer is before somebody else does.
I like it. I like that.
All right, so let's take that. Let's map that into real estate. What do you get from that? A little tongue in cheek, but I think there's wisdom there.
The importance of care calls, the importance of keeping in touch with your client for the sheer sake of making sure they know you're there.
Yeah.
Without an agenda.
Yep.
Or taking the actions that other people are not going to.
Oh, good, Todd. Like what?
Like doing your daily lead gen and follow up. Not bailing out in December.
It's not even May yet. Don't talk about December yet. Holy smokes. Right. But yeah, you're right. All right. So it's doubling down is one of those things. Go ahead.
Hey, George, obviously we're talking about taking care of our clients and doing the things we need to do in our business and stuff like that. I don't know if anybody else is struggling with it, but something George has been helping me work on is I had, when things are going well, you kind of let certain stuff go. part of that of letting some stuff go, I think I had let go of my own personal self-care routine as well, of making sure that I was getting, the right sleep, staying active and all those other kind of things. Cause I think that makes a difference as well. And I think when we feel better, I think it shows up in every aspect of our professional life and our personal life as well too.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Ryan, because that is huge. If we're preparing to go back to Sun Lao Tzu, victorious warriors win first. Anybody see the movie 300? It's kind of a fantasy movie. Did you see it? Right? Where oh, help me. What was the king's name? Greek guy. I should know this, but I can't remember his name now. It'll come to me. But the guy with the Spartan king and meets the other king who brought thousands of people, right? And the Spartan king is saying, "What do you do? I shoe horses. What do you do? I do this. I'm a farmer. I'm this." And he turns to the Spartans and say, "What do you do?" And they go, "Ho, ho, ho." All of them in unison are soldiers. They're warriors. They're absolutely prepared. Smaller number, but totally prepared. Maybe I'm taking this too far. Maybe I was a Spartan in a previous lifetime. I don't know. But I see what's happening here as such an opportunity for the people who are prepared and the mindset is right. And part of that mindset, Brian, you just hit physically healthy, having the energy to sustain what's coming up. Because would you agree, to use the old half Nelson close from days gone by, that when you're physically feeling better and your energy is up, you think more clearly, you handle objections better, you handle adversity better, everything works better when you're taking care of yourself, right? So please, thank you, Brian, for bringing that up, man, because please put that at the top of your list if it's not there yet. Okay, whatever that means to you. I had a conversation with a guy this morning. He's talking about the miracle morning thing. He wants to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, do this, work out. Cool. If that's it, and that's what it takes, go for it. If it's get up in the morning, walk the dog, have a cup of coffee, do that. Whatever it is, but take care of yourself. Get to bed on time, get enough sleep, wake up on a regular basis, stay hydrated, eat well, do the things for your mind, body, and soul that you need, because that's a winning factor right now. And by the way, always will be. See Gwen Ham going, me. Yep. Okay. All right. There's this little chart. Pardon me I'm going high tech here. This is in the introduction. Okay. The difference between the average bar and the higher bar in achievement, if you remember that from the book. Okay, the top, the bar of the past, the average effort and acceptable success, and the era of extra effort, acceptable success. What are you taking from that? What does it mean that we're going to need extra effort going into this shift, besides basic stuff like doubling down on lead gen?
Well, when the shift happens, you need.
Matt, you just went on mute. Could you say that again, please?
Yeah, I was going to say when the shift happens, you need extra energy mentally, right? Because you just came from a different environment. So mentally, it takes kind of double the energy to make sure that you're staying positive around the things that are happening, that you've got your energy level up, even when things that normally you would experience in your day-to-day sales transactions aren't occurring. And so, it's not just the efforts you expend on like lead gen and, self-care, but it's that mental piece too, just making sure you're carrying, almost double the energy, because you almost have to overcompensate, because your natural reaction would be just to be like, man, this is tough. And you definitely don't want to relay that, customer facing. So certainly not going to help your business.
Yeah, Gwen just put in the text, and extra effort to me is the consistency where it wasn't necessarily necessary before. It is apparent in a shift. Yeah. Maybe you should all get a pack of double mint gum, put it on your desk. Weird ideas. Those of you who know me know I come up with this kind of stuff all the time. All right. One last thought. I want to get a minute to kick this around. One of the big things in the introduction and the law of equilibrium at the very beginning of the book, Gary writes about protecting your fortress, building a fortress around what you have. And I'm going to add in building a bunker for yourself. What do you take from that? Building a fortress around what you have.
Staying in the flow of your clients' lives, whether they're in transaction or not.
All right.
That's another way of saying the care calls, I guess.
Yeah. And what other options for doing that, Todd? What other options are out there, or anybody?
Obviously the calls, the surprise and delight gifts from time to time, maybe. Obviously that having your CRM set up so that there's touches even when it's automation.
Having the systems in place to remind you to do this is a big one, right?
Checklists.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other ideas for staying in touch with them? Red Day, Popeyes, care calls, birthdays, 39 touch plan, says Gwen. Yep. She's quiet, but she has good input around there in the corner.
And back to the client events too, if everyone's comfortable getting together.
Yeah. I think people are clamoring for face-to-face human interaction again, finally. Natasha, you're awfully quiet down there. And you're just down there because you're in the bottom left of the corner.
I'm listening.
Okay. Got anything to throw in, or are you just absorbing, soaking it up like a
I'm
sponge?
absorbing, but I was thinking back when you were talking about fears, I was thinking the exact same thing as seller. They know they can sell their house so quickly and easily, but if they really do have to buy another one right away, so that's a fear definitely to address, that if it's such a seller's market, then when they go shopping, there's nothing to buy. Or if they sit on the sidelines for too long and values keep going up, then they may not be able to buy what they thought they could at the time they sold. So that one struck me as well.
Yeah.
I heard
I
another
want to
one,
propose.
one of
Go
the,
ahead.
in one of the fast track teaser classes that it was Never Talk to a Stranger with Kara Mole. No, actually it was the listings one. They talked about in terms of that seller fear of not being able to find the next place, or fear of buying when prices are high. Well, we know the Fed has already said that they're going to raise the rate 9 times, which will affect mortgage rates. And every 1% it goes up is 10% of their purchasing power. So, or if they keep appreciating the way that they are, so they would have less money to buy if they don't buy now, if they find the house that fits for them. So it's better for them to think about buying now if they find that right home than to wait 2 years when they might be 6-7% interest rate. I could have verbalized that better, but that's what I took from it.
Yeah. Well, bottom line is how do you take this knowledge that you have and address it to mitigate the fears that the client has, and understanding the market trends, but being able to communicate in a way that they're going to get it. I think that's one of the keys, keeping it simple. I think it was Tony. I think it was on our call, right? We were talking about the law of the law of requisite variety. There's this cool little thing of NLP. I'm going to leave this with you because I think it's an important concept. And NLP, which is what I do a lot in the performance coaching. This one is one of the rules. I like it. It's my favorite. I also like it humbly because when I say it, I sound smart. So it sounds cool. It's called the law of requisite variety. It's my all-time favorite, the law of requisite variety. And what that says, what it means is the person in a conversation who has the most flexibility controls the conversation. The person in an organization with the most flexibility has the most influence. The part of the system that's most flexible will dominate the system. And if you think about multiple things. Think about conversations that you've had with people where they are just locked in and they do not hear anything. How easy are they to talk with? How much influence do they really have versus the person who can talk to a CEO and a person in the mailroom and have both of them feeling comfortable being on equal level with each of them? Are you flexible enough that to go into Keller Williams language, if you're a high D and you're talking to a high I, are you flexible enough to cool it off and be relatable and calm? Can you read the other person, use your emotional intelligence to talk to them in the way that they need to be spoken to? Can you listen to understand instead of listening to say the next thing? Have you internalized the scripts enough so that when the conversation switches, you can flip the page in your brain and have the talking points to make it relevant to what they're saying? Or are you so locked in that you sound like a telemarketer? Flexibility dominates the system. And when we're moving into a shift, kids, the people who are most flexible, it's what Paige said, the quote I put up at the very beginning, they outperform. Okay. So what we're looking for with this book, which is a compilation of research and best practices and experience, is to internalize it, get what you get from it, and think deeply, how can I apply this in my business and with my clients? Because knowledge by itself is not power. The application of knowledge is power. So I'm going to leave you with that thought, to think about flexibility in your thinking, in your approach. What you did last year, cool. That was last year. And if you're not going to be flexible, like a lot of realtors and other companies are not going to be, they will be out of business. And the ones who are flexible enough and can bend with this change, we're going to dominate. Make sense? And I'll give you, just because it's on my mind, most of you guys know this. I had an experience prior to me getting into NLP and doing coaching. I switched careers and got into therapeutic body work, massage therapy, and I did real therapeutic stuff. It's a very weird thing. When I had somebody on the table, if they were stiff in their body, I found that they were very stiff in their attitudes. It's really weird. It was a strange thing. I was talking to Tony earlier about this, but I would put somebody on the table face down, grab their ankle and just wag it like that. And the people who are really stiff, you would see their thigh do this, but the rest of their body wouldn't move. The people who are flexible, I could move their ankle and you'd see a wave go all the way up their body. And the ones who were loose when they were on the table were much more open to suggestions and possibilities and flexible in their thinking. It was a weird thing. So if you want to gain more flexibility in your language, also get flexible in your body, because the change is going to require flexibility. I'll leave you with that thought.
George, all I heard was go get a massage.
Get a good one. Get a good one. Yeah. All right. Very good. Folks, hey, I appreciate your participation. I'm going to record all these. I think what I'm going to do with them is put them up on a separate page on my website at georgegillis.com, put it on YouTube and load them up there so they'll be available for you as we move on. So next week, tactics 1 and 2, okay, which is, I guess I should have gone back to screen share, but we'll keep it simple here. Get right. Where is it? Good. Yeah. Get real, get right, mindset in action, and remargin your business. Expense management. We're going to spend a little bit of time on that one because that's huge going in. Okay. Thank you, folks. If you need anything, you know where to catch me, and I will catch you next week, same time, same bat station. Appreciate all your participation.
Thank you so much, George.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
I hope everybody takes care.
All right. See you guys.